Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good. You can all say good evening.
Good evening.
It's good for the camera. First of all, welcome to our new space. We'll experiment until we get it right. It's an intimate feeling, and also being that it's just less than a week before Rosh Hashana, I think it's appropriate to begin, as the custom by Jews is to bless everyone with a happy and healthy New Year, a meaningful and enriching year on all levels. There are different customs and different traditions, different phrases. And one of the phrases that is, I think, a very appropriate one is also, you say in Hebrew, that all the blessings should be b'teiv hanir v'hanigul, which means it should be obvious, apparent, and revealed good. Because there are many things that are good that we don't always recognize and are not aware of. There's hidden good. That at the moment you may think it's something negative that happens in your life, and with time you come to realize that in truth there was something very deeply positive about it. But then there are things that are revealed good that right at the outset you can recognize and see that it has benefits for us. So when we bless each other, we don't just bless each other that you should have a good year. We also bless each other that we should have a revealed good year, that you should see the goodness in it and not have to wait to get through the curve or the blind spot or whatever is concealing the good. So that's my blessing as well for everybody. Especially in the area of relationships, quote unquote, where even though we're now not on the Upper West Side, that is always notorious for its mecca of single life, but I think the East Village isn't far behind. New York in general is a single city, I guess, perpetually single, and that's maybe one of the greatest challenges, blessings, and needs that all of us have, to find a meaningful relationship, an enduring one, I would say, and also one that is revealed good. There are many people in relationships, and they are waiting for the good to emerge, or don't always see it. So I also want to wish you all that those of you that have to find your soulmate may find it in this coming year, and those of you that have already found your soulmate should appreciate and know how to hold on to that soulmate. And of course, maintenance is always harder than discovery. So maintenance contracts are always more expensive than finder's fees. I wish everybody able to, not when you say maintenance, I don't mean in the technical term of it. I mean that to hold on to something that is a relationship and it should last after the honeymoon and after the novelty is over is a challenge of its own. So that's also part of my blessing. Okay. And of course all the other blessings that come with it, which is stability and livelihood, making a parnos and income, especially with the volatile markets that we're dealing with, and maybe above all is inner peace. The inner peace that so many of us crave and few of us really ever gain. The ability to just be at peace at the center, where your driving engine is not fear and insecurity and other phobias and forces that so haunt us. Because of the years that I've been teaching this class, the years in general of interacting with people, I find that maybe the most powerful enemy that we all carry inside is fear. And it's most powerful because fear is very invisible and it's very hard to acknowledge. There are things that, when I say fear, I don't mean necessarily we sit in a corner and we tremble. Fear can be these subtle, innocuous fears of taking on new challenges, risks, being hurt. The fear of being hurt is a big one, and it often comes due to the insecurity of our lives. Earlier this week I was at an unveiling at a funeral. It wasn't a funeral, an unveiling that followed a funeral a while back, and you don't want to call it funny, but there was a certain, I guess, morbid, what do we call it, gallows humor moment. Is that what they call it? Cemetery humor. So I shared a few words about the soul and his journey, and then there were people from the family. There were no immediate family members. They were either blood relatives, like cousins, or relatives through marriage. So the relatives through marriage spoke, and shared that with the reason that they're there was their Aunt Millie was whose unveiling was. I did not know her, but they knew me. One of the people who knew me invited me to I guess lead the ceremony, whatever you call it. And then from the blood relatives, and they never had met each other. The relatives through marriage had never met the blood relatives of this Millie. And after one of them finished speaking, one of the relative cousins says, it's very moving to hear how you would all come out for someone that you all only know through marriage and so on. And the fact that you're also united. I have to say, our end of the family, on the other hand, is quite dysfunctional. That was her line. And of course everybody laughed. And then the other side of the family said, well, we want to remind you that we also are dysfunctional. And it became like the catchword of the afternoon. So my big question was, is there anyone functional left on this earth? You have all these movies, they always act like the last human being on earth, or the last dinosaur on earth, or the last whatever lizard on earth. So are there any dysfunctional people left on earth? What do you think? It's up for a vote here. There are?
Yeah.
You know some? Yourself? Okay, there we go. We have a specimen, ladies and gentlemen. Please take a bow. Okay. The camera's not on you. Okay. Yeah, some people say everybody's dysfunctional in some way or another. I'm not going to get into that. Yes, I would love to meet the functional ones. They are a rare breed. What about you? How many functional people do you know? Not a ton. Okay. So anyway, we're not here to talk about to depress anybody. I guess dysfunctionality also has another side to it. It creates a little, I would say, unpredictability, and therefore some spontaneity. So, with that being said, after the blessing I shared with you, what I'd like to address is, being that we're just a few days before Rosh Hashana, I'd like to talk about the significance of Rosh Hashana. Next week there won't be a class because it will be Rosh Hashana, and as you know, I'll be leading the services in this synagogue upstairs. And then the next week after that, 3 weeks there won't be a class, because after that Yom Kippur is also Wednesday, Yom Kippur night, Eve, and then Sukkot again is Wednesday, and Simchas Torah again, 4 weeks. Oh, okay. So you will be, you'll have a vacation from me. I will miss you, but we shall reconvene, renewed, hopefully, with fresh sense of hope and sanctity and joy that Rosh Hashana, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot all bring. So what I'll do is, besides Rosh Hashana, I'll address maybe all the holidays, Rosh Hashana, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. And though I'll be, as I said, I'll be doing it in real time during the services themselves, but some of you may not be here at these services. And regardless, even those that will, doesn't hurt to have a preparation, and as I often discuss, when you're experiencing something important, you prepare for it. Things that are vital and important, you don't just wait for them to happen. You had to make a very serious presentation to a VC, a venture capitalist, or a presentation to get a job, an interview. You're not going to just come in unprepared. You're going to prepare very prepared and do your homework and come in well attuned and lined up. So if we're going to meet the King, which is God, in Rosh Hashana, it would make sense that we all do something to prepare for it. And I would say the more the preparation, the direct proportion to the preparation, will be the fruits of your efforts. So therefore, this is a vital time, these last days before Rosh Hashana. We actually begin the preparation in the beginning of Elul, which is a few weeks ago. Some of you following the book 60 Days know every day has its so-called preparatory stage. But as we get closer, obviously, things accelerate. So we're within the week before Rosh Hashana. Now, there are many themes and many ideas that Rosh Hashana, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot offer us. But the thing that I think is most lacking today is its personal relevance. There are many people who know the mechanics Like if you talk to traditional Jews, they'll tell you that on Rosh Hashana we blow shofar. It's the central mitzvah of the day. As the Talmud says, mitzvahs hayom b'shofar. Though we know, some people may know that we eat apple dipped in honey. We say certain prayers. There are many very unique traditions. But these are the mechanics of Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur has its own set of mechanics. It's a fast day. There are other prohibitions, a day of prayer, people dress in white. There's Kol Nidre. There's different Torah readings. There's Yiskar. There's Ne'ilah, the 5 prayers. And same thing with Sukkot. Sukkot has, we sit in a shelter, in a hut, a portable hut called a sukkah. We take the 4 species and we bind them together, we make a blessing. As I said, these are all the mechanics. I will say, just as a small introduction, I remember, and I think I shared this story here, I was in Santa Cruz, California. I gave a lecture there after my book was published. There's a bookstore called Gateways there. It's a New Age bookstore. Anybody's been to Santa Cruz?
Yes.
There you go. Okay. I see you say it with such exuberance. You miss the place, yeah. Yeah, it's a very interesting town, city. It's around an hour south of San Francisco, just for the geography of it, the mechanics. And it's situated between the Pacific and the mountains. So it has its own climate. It's an interesting environment there. And it has a spiritual vibe to the place. A lot of people have gravitated there that you can call souls. And I remember coming there, it was like antithetical to anything that is New York. And I've been to New York. I'm a New Yorker, a hardcore New Yorker. Addicted to the nightlife, to the city that never sleeps. When you travel across America, you come to cities like Cincinnati and even bigger cities, and basically after 9 o'clock, you don't make phone calls. It's considered rude. And we know that in New York is the opposite. You don't make phone calls before 9 o'clock, almost. And so Santa Cruz is like a city. I remember a lot of young people milling about, and I was like, there was just like, wondering. I thought they're online to see a show or something like that. No. Someone tells me they're just in bliss. You ever hear that expression? In bliss. And it's like a city where it doesn't seem anybody has a job. People are just very relaxed, laid back, like a saloon type of city, and you move from one place and one store, like everybody knows each other, and that's what they do. There's a lot of communion going on. Is that the right word? So in a way, it was very unique, and I actually enjoyed it because, as I spoke in the bookstore, it was the Gateways, as I said. It's a New Age bookstore called Gateways. What I liked about it was you didn't, some cities or other places you speak is like you have to go through a whole preliminary, a half an hour, just to prepare people to say you're going to talk about God or spirituality. This place was a given that the spirituality is important in life. So it was very comfortable background, a very comfortable setting. And it was a room, I remember, with the carpet like this. People were sitting on the carpet. One of those places, very comfortable. I'm giving you the background because it's relevant to what happened next. So after my talk, which I spoke about soul and God and purpose in life and meaning and the search that we're all on. And at the end of my talk, there was a question and answer period. So a woman got up from the back of the room and she asked the following question. She said, tell me, I grew up, she said, in Borough Park, Brooklyn. Ever you know where Borough Park is? It's far from Santa Cruz. Very far. And she went to Beis Yaakov schools, which is, as the New York Times would put it, ultra-Orthodox, right-wing, fundamentalist Judaism. Would they put it that way? Something like that?
I didn't see that piece.
Okay.
Maybe.
Anyway, and she said, as a teenager, I had a lot of questions about God, about mitzvot, all these laws and so on that I grew up with. But I had no one to ask these questions to. In school, they would not let me speak. They would say, just follow along and be a good Yiddish meidele, like your mother and grandmother and great-grandmother were. And then knock out these questions from your mind. You grow up, At home, she said, her father was an angry man, and her mother was even angrier. Like that. Okay. And everything about religion was presented in a very dogmatic, condescending, and constricting way. Fear. Everything was about fear. That if you don't do this, God will strike you. If you don't do that, God will strike you. It was like all about this. And she said, after a while, I just could not really breathe. I remember the word she used. She said, my soul was asphyxiated. That was the word she used, asphyxiated. I couldn't express myself. Anything I asked was silence. At age 17, I finally had it, and I just left. I went off to the West Coast. This, from the way she described it, it sounded like the late 60s. And I discovered my own God. The God I discovered, she said, I discovered through Zen Buddhism and through LSD. And this is she speaking in the bookstore. And I'm sure my parents sat Shiva for me. Shiva is what you sit when someone dies. And that they saw me as someone that had died, being that I left my religion. And I moved first to San Francisco, and then finally I settled here in Santa Cruz, and I'm a happy person. I found my soul. I found my soul's journey, and I'm very fulfilled. So, I haven't seen, she says, a rabbi that looks like you, describing me, in many, many years. And you look like the teachers I had when I was a little girl in Beis Yaakov. And I wonder, where do you get this intimate way of communicating about God and the soul? It's not something I ever heard. Where did you get this from? It's not the Judaism that I know. So, and that was her question. And I saw everybody got very quiet, ultra quiet. So I knew this was a question that was on many people's mind, clearly. And I said to her, we Jews have this thing called the 613-step program. So she laughed and she said, okay, I understand. And then after people dispersed, she stayed around, as did a few others. And they're all from New York or the East Coast, so they had no problem staying late. And we stayed like maybe till 2 a.m. just talking. And we had a very interesting, one of these real meaningful conversations. The ones that really get to cut to the chase. And for me as well, just as much as I hope it was for them. And I told her the following. I said to her, look, I'm not here to judge you. I don't know what you went through. Based on what you describe, I may have rebelled even more than you did. So that's a given. But I do want to tell you that what you rejected was true. You did reject it for the right reason. You were not interested in a dogmatic, mechanical, by rote type of religious ritual with no soul in it. But what you rejected was only half of Judaism. They never taught you the other half. And the other half is that for every body there's also soul. And the body is, yes, a body without a soul is what we call, God forbid, a corpse. Neshama, a guf b'lei neshama, which actually is an expression used in the Zohar and cited in different places for prayer, that prayer without kavanah, when you pray without any heart or intention or feeling, it's considered to be like a body without a soul, which was, like I said, is called a corpse. It's dead. Who was interested in embracing a dead system and dead prayers? The Baal Shem Tov once came to a town and it came the time for prayer, so he asked, where can he go pray? So they pointed to the main synagogue there. And he walked into the synagogue, it was packed, and he came running out. He says, I can't go in there. They said, why? He said, they says it's packed. They said, what, Baal Shem Tov is disturbed that there's so many Jews in the synagogue? What does he need to have a plush, cushioned seat with a name on it? And he says, no, it's not packed with people, it's packed with prayers. The Zohar says that prayers without love and awe, without ka'ava and yira, is like a bird without wings. It can't fly. So the prayers remain grounded. And he says, I came in there and all I felt was prayers that couldn't get out of the building. The whole place was so stuffed he didn't feel he could breathe. So mechanical Judaism is something that is dead. And I told her what you rejected was the mechanics. But there's another half of Judaism which is called the soul. As the Zohar says, that there's Gufa D'Oraisa and Shmosa D'Oraisa. There's the body of Torah, there's the soul of Torah. There's the body of a mitzvah and there's the soul of a mitzvah. In most traditional environments and schools and synagogues, at best you learn the body, the mechanics. Very rarely is the soul taught. Even if it is, it's sometimes also taught mechanically. Okay. And I gave her an analogy that I once heard, which I thought was a very powerful analogy. The analogy goes like this. When God created the nightingale, the nightingale has a beautiful voice. So the nightingale would serenade into the night, but then the nightingale, of course, nobody's always happy, and no one's happy with their blessings. So the nightingale comes to God and says, look, I want to thank you for my beautiful voice. But there's one problem. I may be singing into the night, and a predator looking for a good meal will be attracted to this piece of meat singing perched on a branch. So you, God, need to give me something to protect myself from these predators. So God offered the bird a beak. You know what a beak is, right? A beak. So the bird inspected the merchandise, looked at the beak, and said to the God, I'm a beautiful bird. An ugly nose like that is very unbecoming. I don't want to have a beak. So then God offered the bird a set of claws. And again the bird felt it was unbecoming for an elegant creature like a nightingale to have such ugly claws. So finally God said to the bird, okay, you know what? I'll offer you a set of wings. And the bird never saw wings before, so the bird looked at the wings and said, I don't understand. You are the Almighty God, creator of the universe. I have enough body weight to carry with me when I have to escape my enemies. Why you give me 2 more pieces of extra flesh, wings, which will only weigh me down further? So God, of course, said to the bird, little bird, no, these are wings. I'll teach you how to use them, and when you use them, you'll learn how to fly. And once you learn how to fly, you'll be able to soar and escape your enemies. So I told this woman and the few others that remained that night in Santa Cruz, I said, to do mitzvahs, the obligations that the Torah asks of us, is no question, is more body weight. It regulates every aspect of life, to the point that if you only see it mechanically, it is obsessive. Every aspect, from how you wake up to how you go to sleep, even how you sleep, what you eat, when you eat, sexuality, Shabbos, weekdays. Forget about Passover and days like that. Every detail, how you tie your shoelaces, which shoelace to tie first, how you even cut your nails. And if you look at it that way, it's like, why? Who needs this extra body weight? Who needs these extra responsibilities? And many of us do ask the question, does that make us more moral human beings? And you see many people who so-called are traditional, religious, and they're not necessarily more moral. So that's true as long as you see it as body weight. But if you learn the soul of the mitzvahs, not just the mechanics, not just the body, but the soul, then you see the wings. And yes, wings are more body weight for a bird, but there's no bird in the world, there's no bird in the universe, even one that's on an extreme diet, that's going to, even though birds are never on diets, it's humans have that issue, it will reject a set of wings. And one of the saddest things to see, of course, is a bird that is grounded. And what's even sadder is a bird that has wings and doesn't know how to use them. So I said to her, you were taught the body weight, and that's what you rejected, and I fully understand. But there is another half to Judaism which I have to share with you, and that is the soul, and the soul are the wings. And when you learn how to use them, they are wings that can bring you to places you never could travel on your own. Think of a musician. Music is as free-spirited as it gets. Yet music has a very defined structure. There are only that many musical notes on the scale, only that many keys on a piano. Yet when you play them right, and you're trained to use that structure, it's not body weight, but ask musicians who train every day, it's a lot of hassle, a lot of discipline. But when you have that discipline, it can allow you to create magic with the musical notes that are very structured to reach places that are far beyond any structure. And you'll see anything in life that lets you fly to great places does have a defined structure. The challenge is not to be trapped by the structure and not to be confined by it. So if you see mitzvahs, or the body of Jewish ideas and thought and disciplines, purely as rituals, blind rituals, without the spirit, SPI before the ritual, spiritual behind the ritual. So there's no question it weighs us down. It doesn't make sense even, and why should anyone want to embrace it? But if you can learn how these are tools that can let you fly to great places, then I would submit that everyone would not just want it, they'd embrace it and want more. If someone offers you 100 pounds of stones and says, if you carry these stones across the room here, you can own these stones, I don't think anybody here would really go for that offer. But if someone said to you 100 pounds of diamonds, if you cross across this room, I think not only would you go for the offer, you'd probably say, give me 200 pounds. But 100 pounds of diamonds don't weigh less than 100 pounds of stones. So why is it that one you're ready to embrace and the other you don't really care about? The answer is, it's not the problem is the body weight. It's not the problem how much you have to exert yourself. The problem is what do you get in return? People will invest much if they know there's a return. If what you get in return is life, if you get into return wings that let you fly to great places, exertion is overshadowed and pales by comparison. This is a short introduction, maybe not so short, but a critical one, because the half of cure of every disease is awareness. The biggest disease plaguing religion in general, and Judaism in particular, is precisely what I just addressed here. A body that has lost direction because it has no soul, or people don't know of its soul. So what you have is a great schism between the religious and the non-religious, the secular, modernity and faith. Many of the secular modern world look at religious people as fundamentalists, as dogmatic, as narrow-minded, closed-minded. Check out some Woody Allen movies if you need to confirm that stereotype. So the classical scene where Woody Allen says, not Woody Allen, this niece, he always has this atheist Jewish niece sitting at a Seder table, something like that. And she says to her religious uncle, you're so fanatic. He says, no, I'm not. He says, yes, she says, if you had to choose between God and the truth, which one would you choose? And without missing a beat, he says, of course, God. You hear? Between God and the truth. What does that say? The question itself is like saying, when are you going to stop beating your wife? How could you argue with that type of statement? Between God and the truth. Which is definitely the stereotype, and for a good reason. Many people actually do have that attitude, where God is a dogmatic, blind acceptance that has nothing to do with open-mindedness or free spirit, and that's what religion suffers, that stereotype. As I said, for good reason. For over the last 2,000 years, big part of the history of religion is the oppression of people. Everyone knows Galileo being forced to recant his scientific discovery because the church did not find it fit their doctrine. That's a classic example that religion and so-called free inquiry are not compatible. And this battle between religion and science rages on in many different forms. The interesting thing is that despite the predictions of the Enlightenment of 100, 200 years ago, religion is quite strong today. You only have 2.5 billion Christians and 1.5 billion Muslims, and then the other religions. So the Enlightenment predicted, especially the French Enlightenment, that there would be no religion today. If there would be religion, it would only be the third world countries, the masses, but not the elite, not intellectuals. Definitely not a renaissance of faith. So the battle rages on. It's not so much the topic of this discussion. We've talked about it other times. I'm sure we'll talk about it some more. But the battle is based on these principles that I'm addressing here, because the body and soul of Judaism and of religion have become divorced. I'm talking about Judaism in particular. People like Abraham, Moses, all the great leaders and prophets of Israel were the biggest revolutionaries. They were the nonconformists. They were anti-establishment. So when exactly did religion become a conformity, a system of conformists and establishment and bureaucracy? So you can do a study on that. You maybe Google it. I don't know if you'll discover. But one thing is for sure: anyone reading the Torah, even simple interpretation, sees that Abraham had to pay a price. He had to go against the entire trend of his time, and the same was with Moses and so on. So the idea that religion is a conformist, narrow-minded picture is is absolutely antithetical to the whole presentation of what religion and Judaism was in from the beginning of time, which was anti-establishment, revolutionary, the idea of bringing a higher spirituality into this universe. It was all about soul. Just read the account in the Bible of Sinai. It's a completely spiritual experience. It's all about, you have expressions there, you've heard of the phenomenon called synesthesia, right? Where you could, hearing the sounds, not just hearing sounds, you can see sounds and you can hear sights. This is an expression straight from the Bible. The Jewish people standing at Sinai had a very deeply spiritual experience, visions. So the whole thing was about soul. And the body of Torah and mitzvahs was only meant to be a support, a mechanic that supports the soul of the entire picture. So when it comes now to Rosh Hashana Yom Kippur, the only way to experience it in any type of meaningful, personal way is you have to revisit or reclaim the soul of the experience, the soul of the prayers, the soul of the day. So what is the soul of Rosh Hashana? As I said, the mechanics many people are aware of. Certain prayers are said, a shofar is blown, certain foods are eaten, different families, different homes, communities have their own traditions. But what is the soul of Rosh Hashana? And the same question about Yom Kippur, and the same about Sukkot. They do have a soul. And when you know the soul, it turns the grounded bird from body weight into wings that allow you to soar. It's the bottom line. Soaring on the wings of the high holidays requires understanding its soul. Any relationship you have with mechanical objects will not have any uplifting experience. My relationship with this table is not of a spiritual nature. It's very utilitarian and mechanical. It's sitting here to hold these books up and to block me in case any of you want to attack me or something. That's a joke. Now, the truth is, if you really study the soul of, you can discover that when you use a table for its true purpose, you can have a spiritual experience, even with mineral, vegetable, and animal kingdoms of this world. But it's not so obvious. So anything mechanical, you can say is a given formula, you will not have a personal, deeper experience with. You have to get to the soul of it. So what is the soul of Rosh Hashana? In one word, the soul of Rosh Hashana is the mission of our lives, the indispensable mission that each of us has in our lives. Rosh Hashana is the collective birthday of the human race, as described in Genesis. Adam and Eve, on that sixth day of creation, was Rosh Hashana. That was the first Rosh Hashana. And every Rosh Hashana we recreate and we revisit that first birthday. And as Jewish thought explains, time is a spiral, not linear. So every year we return to that point in time as it was the first time that it took place. So as opposed to the image of a river of time, past, present, and future, think of time more like a spring, like a spiral that goes on an orbit and then returns once a year to the original point where it was there exactly a year ago. Which is also why your birthday is so significant. It's not just a day that commemorates something that happened years ago, but it's a day that recreates what happened. The same energy that flowed then flows now, in that same day, that point in time. which is the power of what Shabbos is, the power of holidays, and the power of Rosh Hashana. So there was something that it took place on a level of spirit and energy, that first Rosh Hashana, and it happened every year since 5,769th time will happen next Monday night. And what is that energy? Not the mechanics, the technical. What is the energy? The energy is the human race was born. For what purpose? Why are we here? This is the big question of Rosh Hashana. That this is the question we revisit every Rosh Hashana. Why are you here? You know that big question that everyone asks. Why am I here? What's the purpose of my life? Everything about Rosh Hashana, all its mechanics, the blowing of the shofar, the eating of the apple, everything else, is all technical tools to discover why you're here. And to re-embrace, or you can say renew your contract with the one who put you here. So when Adam and Eve first ate from the tree of knowledge, there's that famous expression where God sees Adam is hiding in the Garden of Eden, and God says to Adam, Ayeka, where are you? That one word, Ayeka. Now God didn't know where Adam was. The answer is, he asked him, sometimes you sit with someone and they space out. So you see where they are. They're sitting in that chair right across you. But you ask them, where are you? What do you mean by that? Where is your mind? Where's your heart? Where are your thoughts? You don't feel that they're with you anymore. So someone can sit near you, that doesn't mean they're with you. That just means they're physically there. What God was saying to Adam is, I don't recognize you any longer. The divine image, the divine purpose for which you were created, you've abandoned, you betrayed yourself, basically. You betrayed your mission. That was the meaning of the word, where are you? And as one great Rebbe once said to a Tsarist minister, this question is asked to every human being all the time, and especially on Rosh Hashana. Where are you? How far have you wandered away from your mission statement in life? Okay, so this of course poses a big problem. This suggests that you have a mission statement in the first place. Then you can wander away. Unfortunately, many of us have never discovered our mission in the first place. So let's talk about that for a moment. No business can function without a mission statement. Would everyone agree with that statement? Okay. And even with a mission statement, we see many companies don't function well either, as we recently see, especially in the financial markets, where money is supposed to be the litmus test. So let me ask you then this question. How many people have a personal mission statement that you know of? And if most don't, which is what I'm suggesting, how do they function? If a business can't function without a mission statement, how can a human being function? So here, of course, we're getting a more sensitive issue. Some might say maybe we're not functioning. Maybe we're making believe we're functioning. And what does functioning mean anyway? But the fact of the matter is that most of us do not have a mission and statement in life. And if you want to challenge me on that, let me tell you what a mission statement is. And then you don't have to answer to me. Write down tonight what your mission statement is using the following criteria. In business, a mission statement must be short and unique, and has to encompass everything that company does. So for instance, Google's mission statement is to organize, I'm not exact wording, but to organize all the information of the world and make it accessible to everyone or something like that. Microsoft's mission statement is a computer in every home and in every office. You wouldn't have thought of that. But remember, once you say computer in every home and every office, then you have to create the software to make sure that it's indispensable in every home and every office. So every piece of software ever created by Microsoft is only simply about making it necessary to have a computer, from shopping to spreadsheets to financial software, etc., etc. So, for example, for a company to say, our mission statement is to make money. That's not a mission statement. It's not unique. Every company has to make money. How are you going to make money different than your competitor and different than other companies? So if you're going to answer, my mission statement is to be happy. That's what people usually tell me when I ask them, what's your mission? To be a happy person. So I don't like to tell people that they're being shallow when they say that, but it's equivalent of a company saying to make money. That means it doesn't qualify in the category of a mission statement. Some people say, and even if we're not even getting into what the word happy means, what will make you happy. And even to make money is not a mission, because making money is just a tool to fulfill something. What are you going to do with this money once you make it? Now, the reason most of us don't have a unique mission statement because no one ever pushed us or suggested to us or forced us to write one. A company can't exist without one because no one's going to give it money. No one's going to invest money without a mission. Because without the mission, there's no efficiency. And without efficiency, there's no accountability. And without accountability of being able to measure success, results, how will we know that you're using our money well? In other words, money becomes the driving force, that if you don't have the mission, you're going to get into debt and ultimately go bankrupt. So now, in our personal lives, here there are no investors. So that's why we can get away with it. We can get away because there's nobody that you're accountable to. And frankly, most of us don't like to be accountable anyway. But let's analyze this. Does this mean, however, that you are functioning? And what are the consequences of not having a mission in your life? Well, here are the consequences. Instead of exploding, you may not go bankrupt in the literal sense of the word, but what will happen is you will implode. At some point, things will give. It's called being a life lived by a composite of many fragments. If you were to list everything you did today in your life, you'd come up with, and everything, from the moment you awoke till the moment you'll go to sleep. Everything. You woke up, you exercised, you pressed the snooze button once, twice, whatever. Then you exercised, took a shower, you ate breakfast, you commuted, coffee break, tea break, another coffee break, whatever, and a meeting, lunch, another meeting, some significant things, some meaningless things, some shopping. At night, you read a newspaper, whatever it is. Some, as I said, some important things, some meaningless things. You'll come up with approximately, I tried this, around 100 to 150 items, if you list it all. Now try to create a string that connects these 150 items, and you won't be able to. If you can connect 5 of them, you'll be lucky. It's a bunch of fragments that have no hub that connects them. They may all be important to you, or let's put it this way, they're all part of your habits and routines, but they're not necessarily connected. So you can say, who cares? Well, think of it this way. These fragments accumulate day after day, then week after week, and month after month. What comes after month? Year after year, decade after decade, century after century, millennium after millennium. We've gone through a millennium. So what do you have at the end of it? You have millions and millions of fragments that are occupying your life. Now we all know we abhor fragmentation. Even the most disorganized person has some order in their lives. You ever see somebody has a desk all the way to the top, like here? To you would go crazy maybe. Some of us would go crazy. But some people, I remember my father had a desk like that, and I would say, how do you function? He says, tell me what you're looking for. So I would tell him. And he said, right over here. He had his little mental signs, whatever. Obviously, everything is relative in organization. But he didn't think he was that disorganized. For him, this was his organization. We human beings abhor chaos. Even though it's true, I was mentioning about dysfunctionality, when you're very dysfunctional, you begin to be addicted to chaos. And when things are too peaceful, you get anxious. But that's another discussion. But generally speaking, we abhor fragmentation. So what you have is an accumulation of details in your life, and without any idea where you're headed. It has to somewhere is going to give. 2 things will either happen. Either you're going to go into deeper levels of denial, and you are going to begin to numb yourself for being sensitive to the own fragmentation that is ripping you apart, which is what most people do, unfortunately. So to a point where we just don't even want to accept that type of lack of focus, and we convince ourselves that we're doing, everything is going great and so on, which is what people require sometimes. Unfortunately, we call it hitting rock bottom to wake up. Or it will rip your life apart, and you're going to have to do something about it. Unfortunately, people do have to suffer before they usually wake up to real deeper realities on the level of discovering a mission. I'm not saying that as a curse nor as a prediction. It's just the nature of the beast. When you're riding high and you think you're doing well, you'll be able to function without a mission statement, and that's the fact. It's only when you start seeing that things aren't working is when you begin to realize that you may not be fulfilling why you're here. Now you could add into the equation that we also live in a world where there's called an agnostic world, where many people question the fact whether there is a mission in the first place. Some people say that life has no design, there's no purpose, the whole thing is random, and we just, survival of the fittest. Now, if you're of that school of thought, that's going to be very difficult to argue, because if that's what you want to believe, that's what you want to believe. But then basically you have to resign yourself to one thing, to know one thing, that you're insignificant. And whatever you do in this world will not make any mark. And that you leave this world just as you came in, it makes no difference. If you're satisfied with living a life like that, it's very hard, I would say, to really argue with that. The only way you could really have a conversation is if we don't have that axiom in place. Now, I would submit most of you wouldn't be sitting in this room if that's what your belief was. That you don't need a purpose and it doesn't make a difference and you don't really care, that you will make a mark, you won't make a mark. I would submit, not necessarily scientific proof, but I would say experiential proof, just from the gut. Most of us would like to believe that we have something to contribute. Because remember, if you don't, then love means nothing, and lack of love means nothing, and pain means nothing, and joy means nothing, because it's all arbitrary. I in my own anarchist mode, reviewed this option, and I have to say I rejected it, not because I could disprove. You could argue that life is all meaningless, and that's it, period. But I rejected it simply. I could not live a life based on that. It was not. If I had to choose between the two, that was not the choice I would want to make. Is this proof? It doesn't really matter whether it's proof. I don't think most people live life by proofs anyway. One way of proof or another. We live life usually, either we just fall into something by habit, or we make a choice based on emotion, based on intuition, based on maybe reviewing all the options and choosing the best one that resonates. So I would say that, at least as an axiom, every conversation has to have some type of what's called a muskal rishon, an axiom. The axiom of this discussion is that life does have purpose and design, or else we wouldn't be sitting and talking about Rosh Hashana altogether. So Rosh Hashana is based on the principle that life does matter, and that you matter, and that you, when I say you, I mean every individual in this room, on this earth, has something unique to contribute, that no person that ever lived or ever will live can contribute but you. If that statement disturbs you or doesn't resonate, you might as well leave right now, to be honest. I'm not throwing anyone out of the classroom here. That's not my point, that's not I'm just making that statement. And to me, that is the essence of Rosh Hashana. It's the renewal of that contract. Now, the one question you have to ask yourself is, so what is it that I have inside of me that nobody can do but me? What musical note will you play that nobody has ever played before you? I would like to believe that that's a very good question to have, and that is a very uplifting concept. Even if you don't know what the note is, but just to know that you are that way is itself empowering, and that is the true message of Rosh Hashana. Now you'll say, well, I never heard this in the yeshiva, or I never heard this from my rabbi, or in the sermons. Well, I didn't either, to be very honest with you, and I didn't make it up either. It's when I began to be skeptical myself and started questioning these rituals that I grew up with, and I came to realize, when you read the books, this is exactly the story. This is what God says to Adam on Rosh Hashana, Ayeko, where are you? And that question is asked to every one of us on Rosh Hashana, where are you? And where are you is not a physical question. As I said, we know where you are physically. Where is your soul? Where is all your energy going into? What do you do all day? And the fact is that 95% of our day is invested in the means, not in the end, not in the mission, in the means. Once you're in a job, out of school, and you're busy making a living, that takes over. And life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans, using the poets of our time's expression. And that's what happens. You get busy with your life, and you say to yourself, well, I'll find some time soon, on weekends and so on, and then life takes over and you're on the merry-go-round and there's no way out. you're trapped. So Rosh Hashana is a day that demands of us, beckons of us, to change that attitude. Here's a day to rediscover and say, no, there has to be a reason I'm here. There's something I have to contribute to this world. There's my personal mission statement that is unique to me and to me alone. From my perspective, if that's what you focus on Rosh Hashanah, you come away with some type of renewed, you've fulfilled the real soul of Rosh Hashanah. The mechanics are important because they support this message. But the mechanics alone are not going to make your day transformational. The mechanics are tools. When you dip an apple in honey, yeah, it's a symbol of a sweet year. But it's much deeper. What does a sweet year mean? A sweet year means a year that you become a sweet human being, meaning you begin to fulfill what brings your type of sweetness in this world. And when you listen to the shofar, it's not just about listening to a sound. It's the sound of your soul. Why do we blow a shofar? So yes, Rab Sadia Gaon, one of the great Gaonim of that period in time, which is approximately the 6th century, writes that there are 10 reasons why the shofar is blown. If you have my book 60 Days, I enumerate them there. And these include a symbol of the ram's horn that was blown at Sinai, a symbol of the ram that was replaced Isaac at the Akedah, the offering, and another symbolism. But these are all symbolisms. Why do we blow shofar? So the Rambam Maimonides says that the Torah says to do so. Not always has a reason, but then he gives a hint. He says it's a symbol of a wake-up call. Or Yushem, to wake up from our sleep, from our slumber. And if you listen to a shofar, it has that. It's the purest sound instrument. It's just a ram's horn, and it is a type of wake-up call. But if you look in the mystical writings, in the Kabbalah, in the Zohar, and in other writings, you find that the shofar is an approximation of the sound of our souls. You know, when you blow the shofar, it's as I said, a sound instrument. It's a wind instrument. You only use your mouth. You have to blow into it. So neshama in Hebrew means soul, but it also comes from the word neshima, which is breath. You see today in yoga and other type of disciplines, breath is a very powerful tool to get in touch with yourself. Breathing exercises. The truth is, it originates in the Zohar as well, because breath, what is breath? Breath is exhaling and inhaling, similar to the heartbeat, which is contraction and expansion. It's reflective of, it mirrors the heartbeat of life. All energy flows through a dual motion of an exhale and an inhale. So neshama, neshima, soul, breath, is reflective of the breath of life, like pulsating energy. All energy consists of a positive and negative. See, the symbol of energy is like a lightning bolt, electricity. It requires tension and resolution. In the words of Ezekiel, Rotzei and Ashuv, tension and resolution. So when you use a shofar, and the sound of the shofar is meant to be a symbol of the sound of our souls. And the 3 different sounds that we blow on Rosh Hashanah are reflective of 3 different cries of the soul. To the extent that it says in the Zohar that there's even a sound that cannot be heard. Kol Adulei Shtama, there's a sound that cannot be heard. The Koel D'Mamadaka, the most subtle and sensitive and gentle sound of your soul, is not even audible. And we all know this in our own hearts. The things that are most intimate and deepest inside of you, you don't usually express. So when you hear the shofar, it's meant to be a way to return to a more soulful place, to the place where your soul originated from. And if you look again in Rosh Hashana, what happened in Rosh Hashana? Vayipach ba'apov nishmas chayim. God Himself blew shofar. What did He do? He took the earth of the ground and blew into it. He imbued it with the breath of life. Vayipach ba'apov nishmas chayim. And out came a human being. A human being essentially is God's breath in dust, in earth. That's what a human being is. Creating the divine image We are made of matter. That's our bodies. But what gives us life is the breath of the divine breath, the cosmic breath. That is the first time the shofar was ever blown. Now, did it have the same sound? You need to research that. I don't know if it did or didn't. I wasn't around. But one thing is for sure, that happened on Rosh Hashana. And maybe I was around, maybe we're all around. But you have to get into a more primordial place. And when we blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, we're essentially reenacting what God did, which was the breath of life through something that is material. In this case, it's a ram's horn. And out comes a sound. What sound? It's the sound of the soul. When we hear shofar, it's meant to be something that pierces all the layers and gets to the purest part of you and says to you, wake up and rediscover your mission. Why are you here? Now, you experience that during shofar blowing and you'll have a real experience. Does it mean that you can perform the mitzvah without this so-called meditation? Yeah, technically you hear the shofar, the mitzvah is performed because it's about hearing the shofar, but let's be honest, is that really what God wants us to hear sounds? And that's it? Why is it you think that most people are not transformed after they hear the shofar? You know, I remember when I was a kid and we were in a synagogue, it was very packed, and the shofar blowing was actually done by a great man, a tzaddik. Rarely do you hear a shofar blown like that. And I remember the people around us were pushing on this. And I was a kid, naive little kid. I said to my father, I said, I see the same obnoxious people before the blowing of the shofar, and they're still obnoxious afterwards. How does that work? So my father says, when you grow up, you'll understand. So I did grow up, I think, and I understood. I understood what he meant, that you don't understand, that you just become part of the problem instead of the solution. That it is mechanical experience. And yes, naive children will think the shofar should change the person, from the beginning. You should be a transformed human being. Now, I'm not suggesting, I'm sure that moment there's a awakening of tshuva in every Jew's heart, and probably there is transformation on some level, as we all like to say. It must have transformed you somewhere, but you don't always see it on a visible level, let's put it that way. Our goal here is also to manifest it visibly. What happens in heaven happens in heaven. What happens in the depths of our soul happens in the depths of our soul. So when you ask, so anyone doesn't have to be a big skeptic, ask the question, so if Rosh Hashanah doesn't change people, they enter obnoxious, they leave obnoxious. They enter unrefined, they leave unrefined. The way you came in, that's how you go out. So what exactly why are we doing this? And then why do we do it again next year? So the traditional answer is we do it, that's what God wants, it must have some impact somewhere, it doesn't really matter. Okay, I'm sure some of you are satisfied with that answer, but I'm sure some are not. So those that are satisfied, Ihi lahem asher lahem, as they say, may they be satisfied. I'm very glad that they're satisfied, and may they continue on. But for those of us that are not satisfied, and including myself in the picture, it just doesn't, it seems not enough. And is that like not a cop-out? I mean, it's a nice line to say, we do the mitzvah, God will take care of the rest. Do we have no responsibility to do something about it? If Rosh Hashanah doesn't transform us in a little sense, so what day in the year exactly is going to do it? Purim? Hanukkah? I mean, I'm sure those days have their own power, but I mean to say, if we're talking about serious days of awe, and people do approach it, traditional. So I think in a strange way, and I have to say this, even though this may sound sacrilegious to some of you, so I apologize at the outset to the more traditional, I'm not that I'm in any way anti-religious, but some people think I am in some ways. I know it sounds strange coming from someone that looks like me, but I will say that I personally, though I grew up in a traditional and we'll call religious environment, I have learned more about the wealth and richness of Judaism from people who are not traditional and are called secular, unaffiliated, and skeptical, because they force you to challenge yourself with questions like this. When you grow up in a traditional environment, you go to synagogue that you went through your whole lifetime, you just have people reinforcing the same, I don't want to use any expletives here, but the same routine again and again. It's like, you live in your own comfort zone, you breathe the same recycled air. It's the type of inbreeding of every ghetto, of reviewing the same thing that, and everyone, it's like becomes nothing new. But if you look at any form of innovation, and I speak now on every level, creative level and so on, there's an expression they say, the way the neurons are fired, that's how they get wired. The natural tendency of a brain and of a human being is laziness. Laziness means we tend to gravitate back to our routines. What you're used to, that's what you gravitate back to. People like that do not innovate. Innovation always comes when you change your environment and you deal with an unpredictable situation. As soon as it's predictable and it's comfortable, you're going to do what you did yesterday. That's how it is. All innovation is incubated in a situation that is not one that you're used to. That's essentially the statement that God said to Abraham, Lech lecha ma'artzecha me'moladetecha me'beis avicha. You want to become someone real, you want to discover yourself, you want to change something in this world, you cannot be in the environment that you're accustomed to. I grew up, as I said, in a very traditional environment. Where I became and learned to be myself was when I was outside of my own environment. Now, not everyone likes to hear that. Not everyone feels comfortable with that. Again, that everybody has to make that choice. But if you want to become a real human being, someone that thinks, and not just trapped in the patterns or routines of your life, you have to get into situations that are not comfortable, period. You have to do things that are not what you're accustomed to. Come into a room where you don't know anybody, and then see what you're made of. That, to me, is the way you want to experience Rosh Hashana real. Do that. Then you'll start asking the right questions. Now, this is terrifying for many. I've said this to many so-called Orthodox friends that I know, even though I hate the label. And it's not even in their ballpark. What do you mean? This is the way I do it. And they even think it is a virtue, that I do it the way I've always done it. But in business, they don't speak that way. In business, they're always looking for new partners because they want to make more money. Because when it comes to money, then you need something new. And what about? And when it comes to God, you don't need anything new. Think about that. That also is an interesting statement of faith, what it looks like. So I will say is that Rosh Hashana is an unbelievable, powerful day, but only if you allow it to manifest. And you have to ask the right question. And yes, the question is, why are we here? And what is the unique mission that you have that no one else but you has? That is the Rosh Hashana energy. Now, there are many prayers, and they all support this concept. You hear, for example, Rosh Hashana is the day where we crown God as King. Malchus, Zechrenas, Shefris. So Malchus. So you say, well, what does Malchus have to do with what I just said? Everything I just said? Well, let's define. What does it mean to crown God as King exactly anyway? What does it mean? Beyond the lip service. What do? You take a crown and put it on King God's head? And does God need us to crown? If God is the King of the universe and created it all, whether we like it or not, that's the case. So who cares whether we crown God or not? So what is this meaning? And we say it again. Melech Yisrael, Melech HaKol Haaretz, Melech Malchus. And again, in different prayers and different verses from the Torah, from the prophets, from the writings, Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuvim, and on, throughout the prayer service. So if you're paying lip service and you're doing mechanical stuff, it's not going to have much significance. And you just do it by rote. But if you think about it, as a topic I've discussed many times here, what is Malchus? So, in simple terms, Malchus is dignity. God does not need us to crown God as King, because if God is God, it's not necessary for us to do anything. We need it more than God needs it. By having a relationship with God, you're basically stating and renewing your contract that there was someone that put you here on this earth and gave you the dignity of existence. You have a dignity, you have a Malchus inside of you. So when God imbued us with that blow of God's Shofar, through Vayipach, put the breath, the cosmic breath that gave us life, so we do the same thing through blowing Shofar. What really is going on is that there's a relationship that God created the human being in the divine image, and we are a part of God in a sense, and we have something divine to contribute to this world. That's what Malchus really is. So when we say on Rosh Hashana, we make that connection. We're saying you, the king, has in a sense appointed us as your agents in this universe to change the world. That gives life purpose. Take away that statement, then we are maybe negligible or dispensable or unnecessary. So the crowning of God as king, which itself is a foreign concept to modern times, is really this essentially basically making a statement that there's a relationship between a divine engineer and we who are God's partners in this earth, and that's what Rosh Hashanah is about, renewing that partnership. That's what Adam and Eve were created on Rosh Hashanah, and they were put into the garden to l'avdal l'shamra, to serve and protect and transform this world. Pruruvu v'kivshu pruruvu v'umalas ha'aretz v'kivshua means to multiply, fill up the world and conquer it. Conquer not necessarily in the aggressive sense of the word. It means to sublimate it, to tame the world, to civilize the world, to transform it. That is Rosh Hashanah. And that's the statement we make. That's what Adam and Eve, when they acknowledged God, crowned God, and when they didn't, they desecrated the divine image in which they were created, and that's when God said, I don't recognize you any longer. Ayeko, where are you? That's our Rosh Hashanah recreation. You said 70? Really? Oh wow, time flies. I was going to do Yom Kippur and Sukkot, but that... So let me be brief about Yom Kippur and Sukkot, if I may, because I think this message alone, if you go away with this, it's good for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot too. Let's put it that way. But the fact is that Yom Kippur does have a little different type of message. Its message, I would say in one word, Yom Kippur's soul of Yom Kippur is hope. Now, hope, coupled with this indispensable mission of Rosh Hashanah, is quite a formidable duo. What is hope? After, put it this way, why is Yom Kippur the holiest day of the year? Does anybody know? Nobody went to yeshiva, no graduates from yeshiva school?
Just a guess.
Why not?
It's our last chance.
We get another chance to redeem ourselves, to prove ourselves. All our sins are wiped off, and
Is that enough to call it the holiest day of the year? No, it's a great day. I mean,
On that day, Hashem forgave Am Yisrael.
yeah.
Hashem forgave us. It's the Sabbaths of Sabbath, Shabbat Shabbatot, and we don't even eat. We relax from everything. Hashem's
Yeah, but that itself is the question, as they say. What? But why? Why that? Why not on Purim, let's say? I mean,
Because we trust that Hashem will take care of us.
Isn't it the day when the Jewish people are actually judged for whether what they've done good, what they've done bad, and how much panasa they're going to make? And so it's a very...
well, the question I didn't ask why it's an important day. I asked why is it considered the holiest day of the year? What makes it holier than every other day? Even then Shabbos, why is it holy? Okay, look, it's what everyone said here, something right. I'm not going to take away from that. But let me put it to you in more amplified terms. Is the holiest day of the year because it gave us the holiest concept in existence, and that is that there's hope after loss. What happened in Yom Kippur, above all, even though it says in Chumash, yes, Shabbos of Shabboses, Achaz B'Shana, one day in the year will be the holiest day of the year, but it doesn't say why there, in those verses. The reason why is because Moses, on this day, achieved the greatest thing that a human being could achieve in history. He prevailed over God. Usually God prevails over us, one could say, right? And Moses prevailed over God. That doesn't happen every day. We begin right after Kol Nidre, which is the opening prayer Yom Kippur night. We say these words. Vayomer Hashem, God says to Moses, Salachti kidvarecha. It's the opening prayer of Yom Kippur. I have forgiven them as you have spoken, as you have asked me. For what has God forgiven them? So if you know the story, the Jews come out of Egypt, 50 days later they received the Torah at Sinai. 40 days later they build the golden. 39 days later they build the golden calf, betraying God in the harshest way possible. Just to show you the context, building the golden calf and eating from the tree of knowledge are considered to be are parallel. Basically, by building the golden calf, they recreated the same sin that Adam and Eve, when they ate from the tree of knowledge on Rosh Hashana. So they built the golden calf. Betraying God, the second commandment, do not have false gods. They built a false god. Moses comes down from the mountain, he breaks the tablets, but then he marches back up on the mountain to ask for forgiveness for this sin. Now this was not a small sin. It was very malicious and it was very intentional. It was premeditated and it was by people who knew better. There was no excuse, basically. No way out. But Moses does not give up. 40 days he spends on the mountain begging God to forgive the people. He even says to God, erase my name from this Torah if you don't forgive them. I mean, acts that are almost impossible to describe how a human being could literally says, erase my name from the Torah. Moses was not responsible. He was up on the mountain when the whole thing happened. He says, erase my name from the book of life. He breaks the tablets. That's like breaking God's... To even erase God's name is considered to be one of the gravest sins. To take tablets that God had carved and shaped and written and break them. The 10 Commandments, the only time in history God gave 10 Commandments. I mean, it's an act of unbelievable. He desecrated God's name to do anything to save the people. This is not small acts. These are acts of unbelievable selflessness and unbelievable chutzpah, if you want to put it that way. Who would ever think of doing it that way? Usually you go to God in deference and respectful. I ask for your forgiveness. Here he breaks the tablets. Then he says, erase my name from this book. Basically arguing with God, and God keeps saying, no, I will not forgive them. And then he goes up a third time on the mountain. When does he finally prevail? On Yom Kippur. That's why it's the holiest day of the year. Because a man stood up for us, as flawed as we are, with all the mistakes we make, including malicious mistakes that we should have known better, not accidents, and says to God, you created a human race that is not perfect. I will not leave this mountain here. I will not let you off the hook, basically. These are my words, that's not exactly the words he used. You will have to erase my name from your Torah. I will not build a new nation. I will not do what you're asking me to do until you show me that there's hope. I need to come back to the human race and tell them that no matter what happens, there's always ability to mend that which is broken. Even if they broke it in a way that they were responsible for it. Now, it's not like Moses was getting the Jews off the hook either. Trust me, you go listen to how Moses speaks to the Jews. They got their mouth full. But Moses knew how to do it on both ends. He said to God, I will make them accountable and responsible for what they did. This is not like giving them, rewarding them for their punishment. But you cannot leave me here hanging and tell a human race forever and ever that once it's broken, it can't be fixed. Because then there's no hope for mankind. Everyone's going to make mistakes. That's Yom Kippur's power. So if you think of Rosh Hashana as the indispensable mission statement we all have, and Yom Kippur is that even when we make a mistake, you can fix it. Imagine you have those two tools in your life. What else do you really need? Everything else, there's no excuse after you have those two. That's the focus and power of Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. And the rest is commentary. Now, I'm not suggesting there aren't other deep messages in Yom Kippur, and I'm sure you'll hear them in different sermons throughout the holiday, wherever you may be. And I'm not saying they're not important. They may even be equally. But you want to always get to the core. What is the ultimate essence of the day? What is the holiest part of the day? Now, in Kabbalistic terminology, if Rosh Hashanah is Malchus, dignity, and the rebirth of dignity, and your mission statement in life, so Yom Kippur is called Yechida, Achaz B'Shana, is the fifth dimension of the soul, the essence of the soul. The Medrash says the soul has 5 names: Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai, Yechida. Nefesh is the so-called biological aspect of the soul. Ruach, spirit, is the emotional. Neshama is the intellectual. Chaya is the transcendental. And Yechida, the fifth, is the essence of the soul. Yechida liyardecha is the place where the essence of your soul connects to the essence of God. And that's why Yom Kippur, the only day in the year where we have 5 prayers. Every day we pray 3 times. Shabbos and holidays, including Rosh Hashana, 4, Musaf. And we can access Chaya, the transcendental dimension. And on Yom Kippur, the only day in the year where there's a 5th Ne'ilah prayer. And Ne'ilah itself, at the end of Yom Kippur, right when the sun sets, is the closest moment you can get to the essence of what Moses achieved when he was on the mountain. To get God to forgive even the biggest, gravest mistakes a human being can make. So Yom Kippur has the 5th prayer, the 5th dimension of the soul. This is the essence of Yom Kippur. And the essence of Sukkot, to round it all off, is, if Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur are days of awe, Yomim Noraim, awe, so Sukkot is a day of joy. Zman Simchasein. Because these 2 days are awesome in their nature. As I said, it's the renewal of our contract, of our mission statement. It's the accessing hope and the essence of your soul. But then comes the time to dance and the time to sing and celebrate. Not to say Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur don't have certain celebration, but the celebration is done v'gilu b'roda. The explanation is the celebration is somewhat couched in awe. You know, when you're standing before a king, you don't start making somersaults and dancing and singing. There's a certain respect, even though inside you may be celebrating. Moses celebrated when he heard God's statement that I will forgive them. But celebration has to be done with modesty, which, by the way, is one of the reasons Yom Kippur is in silence, because the first time the Torah was given, it was with fanfare and lightning and thunder. It was a whole light and sound show. And in a sense, it provoked, we'd call it Ayin Hara in heaven, other forces, and said, oh, it's such a nice show, let's see what the people can do. So Yom Kippur, by contrast, this time it's in silence. The 2nd tablets were given b'chashay, in silence, quietly on the mountain, discreetly. Moses comes down, it's with modesty. It's with the sanctity of Yom Kippur. But it doesn't end there. 4 days later starts Sukkot, which goes for 8, 7, 8, 9 days outside of Israel, concluding the climaxing with Simchas Torah, which is what? The celebration of that great revelation that happened on Yom Kippur. It says the reason we dance Simchas Torah is we're dancing for the Torah that was given, the 2nd tablets on Yom Kippur. But at this time it's done with a certain pause, as I said, in modesty. So Sukkot essentially is the revelation and celebration. Some of the Rebbes say that which you can achieve on Rosh Hashana Yom Kippur with tears, we achieve on Sukkot and Simchas Torah with dancing. So tears and dancing, tears and joy are 2 sides of the same coin, except it's one achieves it through a certain humility and modesty and awe, and the other does it through dancing and singing. So both the dancing and singing are not frivolous, and the awe is not just about fear. They both have depth, but everything in its time. And you'll see people who know how to be serious and solemn when you need to be solemn, know how to dance when you need to dance. It's a balance. Not that those that dance all the time is a problem, and those that are sad all the time is a problem. You know, there are different synagogues in New York or around the world. Without mentioning names, there's some synagogues on Simchas Torah looks like Rosh Hashana, and in some synagogues Rosh Hashana looks like Simchas Torah. You know, there's so we don't live in a perfect world. You have to just take from different, like a different menu from different places. Now, on a concluding note, if I may, with your permission, since it is coming the holidays, I would, and I know some of you had asked me to do so on Saturday night when we had the whatever we call it, the music improv. Again, with your permission, I'll sing one of the holiday songs, which is something we do traditionally. Do I have the permission of the? Okay. Sorry.
Show of hands now.
So let's see if I can find it. There are quite a few melodies that I grew up with that are extremely moving. And since we don't have all night, or do we? You know, the truth is here. We have the space. We can do what we want all night. That's the truth. It's one of the reasons we. So I'll do one song officially, and if those of you who hang out more, I maybe do another one or two if you like. That's up to you. How does that sound? That way we'll see how many people really want to be here. Okay. Yeah. Don't embarrass me.
It's not.
Okay, let's see. I'm just looking for a second. Well, this song is a extremely moving melody. It's sung on Yom Kippur night after Shemoneh Esrei. There's a bunch of set of prayers that are said specifically to that evening, and so I'll sing this one. It goes with the words, but I'll sing it without the words. It goes on the words Yala Tachanenu Me'erev, which is a very moving prayer that talks about because it's let our prayer, I'm just translating, ascend at sunset, may our cry come to you at sunrise, and let our song be heeded till sunset. It essentially sets the tone for the whole Yom Kippur, which begins at sundown and ends at sundown. As I said, 5 prayers, so this is the first of the 5, and it will conclude at sundown the night afterwards. So this whole prayer talks about our communication to God. And this song, which was composed by Chassidim, in a way captures the essence of the message. And this prayer goes through quite a few stanzas. So this goes like this. Okay, so I wish everybody a very, as I said at the outset, a very blessed year. As we say in the prayers, everything from A to Z, or Aleph to Taf, that it should be a year for many of you, or those of you that need to find your soulmates. You should find them hopefully in a peaceful way and a pleasant way, least amount of heartache. And those that have already found should know what they appreciate, what they have, and work on building it. And the blessings for Parnasa, for those that need to have a balanced, I would say a stable livelihood and health. And of course, those that need to be blessed with children. Rosh Hashana is a day when both Sarah, Hannah, and others, it's a day when Peikad Akaras, God opened the wombs of those that need to have children and healthy children. And in general, all of us should have a very peaceful year and a very blessed year. As I said, this class will be resumed after the holidays, because the holidays are all on Wednesdays this year, which supersede this Wednesday night class. However, as I said, I will be doing Rosh Hashana Yom Kippur in this building with the meals and everything, and even if you are services elsewhere, you want to come here afterwards, and if I bring a little, we'll be here throughout, and I welcome you all to that. And hopefully, so this is a good beginning. This is the first Wednesday night class I'm doing here after years of being on the Upper West Side, and before that in Brooklyn. It's a long journey, and hopefully this building and this space will bear many fruit, and look forward to a very dynamic and hopefully exciting programs. And I want to tell you that above all, we see this place as your place, meaning that the programs hopefully will grow organically based on your requests or needs or demands. Well, demands as well. And so if you have any suggestions of any particular interesting program or anyone you think would be a good performer or a good, we're open to every idea. This is going to be very, we'll call it, what do they call it? Open-ended, not like Microsoft, but like more like Linux, okay? Open source, that's what I wanted to say, right? So think of it as open source with a little guidelines that the Rabbinic Committee will oversee. I'm just kidding. I don't like committees, so that's not what's going to happen. But really, honestly, if anybody has any ideas, feel free to speak to me. Of course, to Velvel, whom I want to thank personally, because this space would not be here without Velvel's hard work. And I want to also say a refuah shlema. Is it Lav or Greg?
Greg.
Greg, he says Lav. Anyway, a refuah shlema to Leib Naftali ben Malka Kela, who actually was at this class many, many years ago. We're going back how many years? 25 years at least. Okay, he should be well. As I said, everybody who needs a healing should be well. So anyway, on the other note, Velvel again. Another applause. No, okay. So, as I said, the building is not completely finished. You see, whenever you see wires and bulbs, you know that the lighting is still coming, and this place will be, as you'll hear, will be really a place that, think of it as a spiritual third space, like a spiritual Starbucks, where you're going to have Wi-Fi here, and people will be able to come. There'll be books and internet, and you can sit here freely and just enjoy. And of course, we'll also have a programming. Hopefully, it can become a true oasis, spiritual oasis, away from home for all of us. So please look forward to that. You can tell your friends. This place, East Village, is uncharted territory. You can, nothing's going on around here as far as there's no formal a religion going on in this community, which is great, right? Okay, at least that I know of. There is Moshe's bake shop here. There's always a Moshe somewhere. And Caravan of Dreams, I hear, is also down the block.
Rabbi Ackerman on 6th Street.
I'm sorry?
Rabbi Ackerman on 6th
No, I'm not saying this is. There's many synagogues around, but it's not the Upper West Side. Let's put it that way. Not Jerusalem either, which has its advantages. Membership has its advantages. I want to also say like this: if you want to be kept updated on everything that's going on, we will please just leave your email address here. If you don't want to be updated, don't leave your email. If you don't want to be updated, you can just mark down your email that you only want to get one or two. We're going to have different lists. So some people get my weekly essay. We'd be happy to just send that to you. In other words, you're not hostage to all the lists if you leave your email address. You can get exactly what you like. It is a democracy. And if you get more than what you need, you can always sue us. But hopefully you don't need to rely on that. Now, so we hope this space will have a lot of laughter, music, tears. I've had enough in my life, so I hope the minimal of that. But that I'm sure comes with the turf. There have been tears around here. And as I said, a year of blessings for all of you. And we're not saying goodbye, it's just a small little break between one event and the next. I will say that after the holidays, last night, some of you were there was a great women's group, women only, and no men dressed in drag are allowed in either. This was a Kabbalah of cooking, a hands-on spiritual, Kabbalistic and cooking all together. It was good, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay, so that'll be resuming as well after the holidays. So the holidays somewhat. Now we might be thinking of doing a sukkah party as well because there's an outdoor space here that we can build the sukkah. So we'll keep you informed based on the email, by email. So fasten your seatbelts, okay? As they say on every flight. What?
You're so joyful tonight. It's good.
I'm off for 4 weeks now. No, it's not. I'm starting the high holidays. Plenty of stuff. Okay, you want to add questions, please? Here we don't have to break at 10 o'clock, so we can, as I said, if you want to hang out a little longer, I'll be here. Those that want to have a curfew, feel free. But let me just, 1 second, let some people. So, good night. If you'd like to ask some questions, I'll be happy to go ahead.
Should I just start?
Want to start and start again? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question.
You can start.
Okay, thank you.
You want to stand up?
No, thank you.
Say your name.
No, thank you. I appreciate that I get your each day from Elul into my inbox. And I appreciate it so much looking at the one about Mechila and Slicha, etc. Explanation was fabulous. And about the different levels of forgiveness. Happens to be that I was thinking about that quite personally, and I have a question. While I realize that forgiveness of another human being would be an act of love to Hashem, because He wants me to do that, so I would want to do that because that would show I love Hashem. Right? I'm wondering if one is al pi halacha required to do that with someone who has absolutely no remorse, has not come to ask Mechila, doesn't think they have any apology to owe, no sincere regret, and they don't believe they've said or done anything wrong. And I'm wondering, while I realize I'm supposed to forgive someone, because that's what Hashem wants from me, and that would increase my fabulous relationship with God, I'm having a
Is it
human
fabulous? Is it
moment.
fabulous?
Actually, yeah.
Okay, good.
And I know it could get better if I did this, because it's like,
I
love is
understand
doing
your
what's
question.
good for the other person.
I
And
got
so
it. Very clear question. It's clear.
I just don't know how to do it humanly. I'm having a synapse moment. I'm not sure. I know that I want to, but I can't seem to feel it 100%. And I feel like if I do it, it won't be real. It won't be 100%. So how do I deal with this? It's really big for me right now. Thank you.
Well, since you mentioned halacha, which is Jewish law, so as you may know, there is a whole section in Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, that talks about the laws of forgiveness before Yom Kippur. So what it says there is the following. It addresses this question. The obligation that we have before the day of forgiveness, Yom Kippur, is that we have to ask those that we've hurt for forgiveness. Once, twice, 3 times. There's a whole order. Do it in public, in private, and so on. And then there's the obligation on the other end of somebody who's being asked for forgiveness, not to be, as the Shulchan Aruch calls it, achzer, cruel, and not forgive. If someone comes to you for forgiveness, you have to show compassion. But there are 2 exceptions there. Interesting exceptions. And it's one of the most profound psychological halachas, actually, that I once did. I think I did a radio show. I used to do live radio in New York on this, because I really found that those laws to be very profound in their whole psychological structure. So it says like this: there are 2 exceptions when you don't have to forgive someone if they come to you, even if they come to you.
I'm talking about if they don't come.
I know what you're talking about.
It's even worse.
But bear with me. Listen.
Okay.
Remember, I'm answering the question to you, but since there are other people sitting here and may have similar questions, I want to be a little comprehensive. The different scenarios. So the Shulchan Aruch says like this: that if somebody comes to you for forgiveness, hurt you, and they ask for forgiveness, but by forgiving them, you get hurt in the process, you don't have to forgive them. That's one exception.
Can you describe what it means to be hurt in the process?
Let's say, I don't want to use an extreme example, but I have to. Let's say somebody was physically abusive to another person, and by forgiving, you continue to remain a victim. You haven't yet the strength, and that person, you've really not grown to the point where you're ready to. And maybe by forgiving them, it's really a sign of weakness, and you still need to build your strength, and maybe you remain a victim. Sometimes that would be an example. And actually, you have a right to determine that. Since that person is the one that hurt you, he or she is not the one that determines when forgiveness should be given. You are the one that does. So if you want to be godly and do it right, you ask an objective party. I have a scenario like this. Recently, someone came to me. I do not like to use very extreme examples, but this happens to be very extreme. And we're talking about something in the family of incestuous. Okay? So, and that parent is now asking the child at his old age for forgiveness. Now she's already 55 years old. He's an older man. He's asking for forgiveness. She doesn't feel he's sincere. She feels that it's, he's about to die or whatever it is. She has cut off from him. She feels that he's, in a sense, abusing her even with asking that. It's like, why wouldn't you forgive me? Type of thing. What right do you have not to forgive your father? Everyone could ask for forgiveness. And she never saw in her life ever that he did anything. If anything, he continued to invalidate her, and even continues now. So she asked me the question, and I, in order to give her an objective answer, I actually asked another rabbi that I wanted to get opinion, and we both came to the conclusion that in that case, it would hurt her more than not. So to let him figure it out with God, So that's one exception. The second exception, I'm not saying every case is that, these are extreme cases. The second exception is even more interesting. If you feel that the person coming to you for forgiveness needs to still be humbled, then you're allowed to not forgive them to continue to humble them. Says the Shulchan Aruch.
And that's all for the one who goes to you.
Right.
And this is
exactly. So I'm saying to you, if someone doesn't come to you,
even more so.
One second. One second. I didn't finish my what I have to say. I didn't finish. There's a few more things to say about this.
Wow.
The next thing is this. So yes, if that's even someone who's coming to you, imagine someone who's not coming. So since when do you have to be the one that obsesses? Let them obsess. That they did it. You're not the one that did anything wrong. They did something wrong. So why are you worried about you forgiving, not forgiving? That's the first thing I say to you.
Okay.
To me, that's not necessarily always a healthy sign. This happens all the time. People who are criminals do something to someone else, and the person who's the victim is obsessing over it. Let them obsess.
Agreed.
You have to free yourself. Now, so therefore, I don't see here an issue that you have to feel guilty about forgiving, not forgiving. This is nothing. God is a compassionate God. It's not some type of magic trick. You forgive somebody, then God forgives you. That's why I'm showing you there's all kinds of exceptions. It's all about being healthy human beings. For the word forgiveness is not a end in itself. There's a reason that we forgive, and this is what I'm leading to. The word forgiveness in Hebrew, the word for it, mechila. Machal. Now, machal also has another meaning. You know what it means, machal? Machal, in Hebrew, machal is also a circle, like a dance. Sometimes say a machal. As tismach v'machal, that they will dance in a circle. Mem ches vav lamed. Because forgiveness really, ultimately, and this is the real power of forgiveness, in a healthy environment, completely healthy environment, we are all human beings on this earth, as I mentioned earlier, musical notes of one large symphony. In a seamless world, that music plays beautifully. When somebody hurts another person, the circle is broken. And forgiveness is a way of completing the circle again. So, if someone hurts another person, two circles are broken. The one that did the hurting and the one that has been hurt. So they both really need to fix that circle. So if it's sincere, the person who did the hurting will come sincerely and ask for forgiveness and truly mend their ways. And the one who was hurt, bless you, and one that was hurt also has to complete the circle and not be cruel and let things be mended and move on. As we learn from Moses, the people made a mistake, or more than a mistake, they sinned, and God ultimately did forgive them. But there's a deeper level of the element of forgiveness is forgiving yourself. Many of us who are hurt by others sometimes cannot forgive ourselves. We blame ourselves. Children do this all the time. Children of divorce, children of abuse, children of any type of crime often blame themselves. And you have to learn to forgive yourself. So even if the person who hurt you is not ready to be forgiven for whatever reason, they're not ready or whatever, you still don't want to have to be carrying the weight of that crime in your life. So you have to close your circle even if that person doesn't close it to you. There are people I know, for years they obsess, why doesn't that person keep coming to me for forgiveness? You remain a victim of them as long as you do that. So, because it's not about them, at some point you have to learn to take responsibility for your life. And you don't want to remain a victim to anybody. So forgiveness in that sense, in a way you could say, not that you forgive that person, but you may forgive in the sense, I want to let go of it. And let them go deal with God without me. You know? I'm not part of this circle any longer. It's like getting rid of the anger and the resentment. I know children, when they're no longer children, they're adults. Some of them remain completely like little children in front of their parents. And some of them have run the other way and never talked to their parents. But both of them are still haunted by their parents. This one is haunted by being completely sheepish and acquiescent, and like an enabler, as they say. And the other one is being haunted by running the other way. There has to be a point of coming to a place where you can separate from. And that's also an element of forgiveness. It's forgiving yourself. And this brings me to another thing. If you have a parent or anyone else that has hurt you in that profound way, even if they never come to you for forgiveness, even if they die, which is always a very terrible thing because there's never been closure, you can go to their grave and you forgive their soul. Doesn't mean you have to forgive their body, if you know what I mean. You can forgive you almost like say, I have compassion for my parent because there was something good there somewhere. We have the ability to do that as well. I'm just giving you the whole spectrum because you have touched upon a very complicated topic that most importantly I want to conclude is case by case. Everything I said here should never be used in generalizations because there are no two instances alike. These are just some basic guidelines. So I would suggest to yourself or anyone in dealing with these issues should find someone to talk to, one-on-one, so you can talk more, certain things that I don't think should be discussed in public. Because you have to also know the situation, what it's doing to you. It's very important to know the impact it has on you, above all. It doesn't really matter what that other, because we're not the person, the criminal is not here. That's there. You have to figure out what to do with your life, and that's really the ultimate challenge. Okay.
Thank you so much. Well, can you just elaborate on the last thing you were saying about completing your own circle and letting it go, that part, and forgiving yourself? If you didn't do anything to forgive yourself about.
Well, why is it, for example, children? No, but for example, why do children of divorce blame themselves and not their parents? Why? Tell me. This is a common phenomenon. Why? Why do people who've been, God forbid, raped? or hurt in other ways, blame themselves and not the other person? Why don't they just say, a bad person hurt me? Why do they blame themselves?
Societal pressure, I'm just guessing.
It's deeper than that, because sometimes you cannot tolerate to believe that your parent would do something like that to you. So you have to say I must be damaged goods. Something must be wrong with me. That's called forgiving yourself. You have to get out of that circle, that cycle. That's called freeing yourself from that type of...
In other words, not believing what you call the person the criminal, not believing what the criminal said about you.
Or what you think about yourself. I mean, many people think very low of themselves once they've been hurt or violated in some way.
There is also, I want to mention, seems to be there is a great psychological advantage in forgiving. Because if you don't forgive, you feel hurt, you feel angry, and basically in the final analysis, you just hurting yourself. So when you forgive, in a sense, you forgive somebody else, but you forgiving, you're helping yourself.
Right, but I like his answer because it doesn't involve the other person. You just work on you and let that person. God will deal with that person. I love that answer because that does do what you said, but it's not direct.
No, but there's merit to what he's saying as well.
I know it's similar to what you're saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
But everybody's gonna.
If somebody sends you ask for forgiveness on an email, and they're doing that not because they are out of country, but they're doing this because they really want to avoid.
Did they hurt you? Did they hurt you also via email, or they only forgiveness via email?
No, they just say I'm sorry, but they're really not making the phone call because they really don't want to face, the consequences. So that doesn't mean they're really humbling.
That's why we have the delete button.
So do you accept that? Do you?
If somebody hurt me not in person and then sent me an email, look, it depends what it is. I'm not sure what you're referring to. If it's a serious, remember, I have to add another thing. Sometimes we feel people have hurt us, they haven't really hurt us. It's our own thin skin or our own sensitivity that's exaggerated. So it all comes down to, first we have to determine whether objectively is there a real hurt here. Not every time we're hurt means we truly are hurt. I'm not invalidating anybody's feelings here, but I mean to say, I know people who someone says something to them, they didn't mean anything, and you think that you don't forgive them the rest of your life. I had a woman who called me today, serious story, and I felt terrible. She told me years ago I said something that was political based, in her mind at least, and it hurt her feelings terribly. I guess some statement about Republicans or Democrats or liberals and stuff like that. And she says she loved my classes till that point, and read all my books, and read all the emails, and continues to actually. But that was it. And she wanted to know if the high holidays are going to be political in any way. Here that I'm going to lead here. Now, even though on one hand, it was like complete, to me it was almost like off the wall in a way. But at the same time, I didn't want to invalidate because I don't know where a person is at and what they hear and how they hear. I can't. I may say something. I'm innocent about it, but the person takes it the wrong way. So I asked her. I said to her, "You say you read all my books, and you've given them out as gifts." So I said, "In any of my books, did you ever see anything political? If I have a political side to me, there'd be one line in some book, and some article." She says, "No, it was one class that you said it." So I said to myself, so you're telling me you come to years of my classes, read all my books and writings, and one line or one statement I made in a class through you that till this day you still cannot get over it. I said, what do you think that means? Now, again, I wasn't trying to make a case that I was right and she was wrong. That was not my point. It was just an interesting... So I hope that she's learned... No, that wasn't a forgiveness thing. She would like me to ask her for forgiveness, I guess. No, not really. No, she didn't ask me, but I didn't even think it warranted it. Just because somebody wants to get your forgiveness, even if they feel it, but it doesn't mean always that you have to ask for. I didn't think it warrants, because look, sometimes a cigar is only a cigar, as they say. What I mean by that is that in this situation, honestly, I think that perhaps there was deeper issues going on. And the discussion of the political, I've never heard that politics should ever get to somebody so deeply. Like for me, it's like saying, someone that votes for a Republican, for a Democrat, that can't vote for a Republican is to me like ridiculous. You vote for people. Harry Truman dropped the atom bomb. He was a Democrat. What would they say if Bush had dropped an atom bomb? You know what I mean? It's not the Democrats that did great things, the Democrats that did terrible things, and the Republicans the same way. Tzaddikim, none of them are. So I really don't get the whole how anybody can become so roiled up. But you see Boston Red Sox and Yankee fans don't talk to each other either. You have, it's like insanity, but that's how it is. Anyway, my point is that not every time someone's hurt about something means that something real damage was done.
Yes, but Rabbi Jacobson, for example, let's say I know a person, and as you said, it's oversensitive about something, okay? So, you didn't, as you said, I'm innocent, I didn't do anything wrong. But the feeling that somebody is upset at you for something stupid, like, I ask forgiveness. I know I don't have to. I know that I didn't do nothing wrong, but I'll ask it because, I don't know, shouldn't we ask anyway?
But we men are much more vain and much more proud than you.
No, but...
I'm just kidding.
No, but...
No, I agree.
The point is that somebody is upset. The point is that somebody doesn't feel that comfortable with you because of that, no?
No problem at all. I didn't tell you. I just told you in this case I felt this is what I felt. But, something... there's some people, even if you do that, next week they come back with another thing.
Yeah, you're right.
You have to also know
where to stop.
Right. I have no problem. Listen, there's sometimes you have to think for two people. There's nothing wrong to make somebody feel good, even if you're not. I'm not trying to not to fake it, but I'm not. I'm saying we have to be locked in not. But you have to also distinguish. Sometimes. There's an expression in the Talmud that if you say Hallel every day, Hallel, if you praise God every day with special praise of Hallel, it's like you insulted God. Why? What's wrong? Every day you say praise. Because then, the real praise doesn't mean anything. There was a guy that I knew, and actually I helped him with this. I met him every time, maybe 40 times a day, he would tell me thank you. I was working with him, and thank you. And I got so upset at him, I said to him, listen, do me a favor. All your thank yous mean nothing. You tell me thank you when it matters. When I hear 40 thank yous, none of them mean anything to me, because it becomes like. And what came out of it is that he grew up in a home where he was constantly belittled, infantilized, and he's constantly trying to be a pleaser to everybody. Thank you. He has no self-worth. He thinks he always have to thank everybody. And I showed him. It wasn't my intention, but I saw so many thank yous. I just told him bluntly. I said, there's thank yous where they deserve a thank you. Other situations, there are other ways to express it. And you have to know how to distinguish. So I'm saying, to say forgiveness sometimes is a very sacred thing. So just to make it frivolous that every time somebody, forgive me, also becomes. It's just a question of distinguishing. I'm not. Like I said, it's case by case. It's hard to make generalities.
You're right. About that, you're right.
Excuse me. What about the situation when you have like a disagreement with somebody, and you actually think you're right, you actually think how you feel is right, but yet you turn around to that other person and you actually try and apologise to that person because you want to keep the peace basically, and really you actually deep in your mind you actually think that you're actually right. This is something that's happened to me. Should you sort of stand your ground basically and say and not if you genuinely don't, you genuinely really don't mean to apologise to that person, then why should you do it? Just to keep the peace, because at the end of the day,
it's a very good question. My response to you is as follows: if it's somebody that you love, like a spouse. Sometimes that's what you do. You don't always have to be right. You don't. So you overlook it, and that's it. It all depends in situations. I think the criteria is this: if no one is hurt, why not? But if in any way you're misleading, and later it's going to come back to haunt, like you make believe that you really agree with the person, and then they write up a contract that you disagree with. And they say, what do you mean you agreed with me? You said I was right. You say, well, I only said it because I want to make you feel good. Then it's not necessarily the healthiest thing to do. So I think it comes on case by case. You don't want to just do it to make yourself feel good. Sometimes people don't like confrontation. But sometimes confrontation is healthier at the outset rather than come back to haunt you and bite you later. Okay, but there are situations when it comes to people you love where it truly doesn't make a difference. So what? So the other person, so you overlooked. People have their quirks. You want to sometimes be over. People that love each other overlook things. They don't always have to be right in every situation. It all comes down to the consequences and the effect on everybody and everything. Yeah.
I want to ask you a question. What if someone hurt you and you chose to distance yourself from that person, but then you find out that you hurt them by not being their friend? It's like, do you have to go to apologize even though you know it's in your best interest to stay away from that person?
Say again, what's the scenario? I'm sorry.
Let's say someone hurts you or continuously hurts you in a friendship or in a relationship, and then you choose to distance yourself from that person completely. Like, you totally get away from the friendship. But then you find out that you truly hurt them, not being their friend anymore, and by distancing yourself.
Okay.
Are you at fault? Do you have to apologize?
No, why don't you go back to that person and say, listen, you hurt me, I had to withdraw, and let's talk about it. And let's see what comes out of that. That's what I would do, if it bothers you. Yeah, because sometimes people do something bad to us, and we reciprocate, and we do equally bad. Two wrongs don't make a right. There are healthy ways to deal with it. If a person who's truly your friend has hurt you, if they're really your friend, why can't you confront them? And if you can't, maybe it is time to realize they're not your friend, and then maybe it is time to separate somewhat. On the other hand, sometimes separating, the other person just wants to make you feel guilty, like as if you did something wrong, when it's they that really did it wrong. I mean, this requires to look at each case. I can't give a general statement. It depends on the situation. And sometimes you do have to overlook things and not walk away. It all depends on the circumstances. I would just say, since we are mostly subjective about these matters, it's always healthy to get objective advice. And not objective advice of the sort where a guy says, "I'll tell you when you need a second opinion." So true objective advice.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Good to see you. A fellow wrote to me, a situation, terrible situation. Yeah, custody battle, child. So I think I wanted. I was asked to get involved a few years ago about it. So I spoke to both parties and I said, look, if you both trust me, I'd be happy to mediate. Here both we all sit down. Three of us will all sit down. It never happened, and I'm not insulted. I didn't think it would happen. Most cases, people just can't. They're too angry at each other. Meanwhile, a child is being hurt in the process. And these people, I don't know if you know how these battles go. They can go forever, spending an enormous amount of money. The anger, everyone's getting even with the other, while their own child is being hurt, and they're both wrong. There's no question in my mind. So I've long, stepped away. I'm not involved, and that's it. Now that one of them is trying to pull me back into it by saying, I said this to that one, said that, you said this, you said that. These things. And it's all in court papers and papers and papers. So this one said this, that I said this 5 years ago. And the other one's calling me and saying, writing to me, the other person claims you said this. I need to have a letter from you saying you never said it. But no one's going to say demanding that from me. So the person writes to me, I just thought it's good for you to know what is being said about you on public record. What are your thoughts? So first I thought of ignoring the whole thing, but me, I like to make people a little uncomfortable. So I decided to write back to this fellow. I wrote back to my thoughts. What are your thoughts? In other words, about trying to suggest that I should come out. I said my thoughts are about an innocent child who's being hurt by two adults who can't resolve their issues. Those are my only thoughts. And maybe it's time to get your act together. Find yourself a mediator who's not going to be hoodwinked by either of you, and resolve this once and for all for the sake of your child. That's my thoughts. Okay, hold on. But listen to the response. And I saw how self-destructive a human being can be. And this person will never know it. I hope they find out before they die. But it's so sad. So he writes to me. He was like, he didn't like what I wrote, of course. So he writes to me these words. Thank you for your wishes, and thank you for your caring about the innocent child who's been deprived of seeing his father for the last 15 months. Okay, fine, that's all right. Then he continues saying, and I hope this child will be exposed to rabbis that are ready to intervene for the sake of the child instead of doing something in their self-interest. You hear? The person with self-interest writing that's interesting, right? This to me is like a tragedy. What's a tragedy? I feel myself, am I responsible? No. I walk away, I'm going to sleep very peacefully. This person is single-handedly hurting his own child. He's writing to me who has no self-interest because it's not my child. I have no party here. I'm not party, not to the guy, not to the woman. He's writing to me about self-interest. You understand the blindness? Unfortunately, I see a lot of this. And maybe if I was younger and more naive, I'd blame myself. I say, what did I say wrong? And I'll try to ingratiate myself. Bunch of baloney. What ingratiate? The guy is a self-destructive guy. I understand the boundary period. I'm not interested in dealing with this. Anyone reading this will not be interested in dealing with it. You see what's going on? It's a document. A person saying that they have no self-interest. It's everyone else has self-interest. I only care about the welfare of the child. You understand my point? I don't know what's connected. I just wanted to share that, in case any of you ever have such blind spots,
I want to
including
ask
me.
Regarding to the example you gave, but how do you deal with the fact that you were exposed to that situation, and by being exposed, you got involved with that?
Thank God I'm exposed to many things in my life, and I have to make choices what to engage with. That's all. If it was the only thing I was ever exposed to in my life, then I'd say divine providence, God wants me to deal with it. But since I've been exposed to many other things, many more where I could be helpful, sometimes you're exposed to something and shows you that maybe you can be helpful, and that's it. I can't be helpful here. That's serious. I'm at peace with that. Not everything has to be fixed by you. Maybe someone else has to fix it. It taught me the depths of blindness that a person could have. Anything to win. And does not understand that they're the one that is the most subjective. That's all it brings to the say. What can I say? Let's put it this way: if it ever gets to court, and all these documents are exposed, and I am called to testify, I'll bring this email, and I'll let the judge decide who's best for the child. What do you think? This email speaks for itself. That's how I see it. Hope it doesn't get to that place. What can I say? Meanwhile, children are being hurt. That's the bottom line.
Thank you.
Okay. So we got a heavy topic, forgiveness. Okay.
Thank you.
Question, okay.
Okay.